Golden sunlight filtered through the expansive windows of a mansion that radiated affluence and authority. However, within those immaculate walls, a scene unfolded that cut deeper than any fortune could conceal. An aged man, his fragile frame bowed by decades of struggle, knelt upon the gleaming hardwood floor. A mop had fallen from his shaking grasp, while a bucket lay overturned beside him, sudsy water pooling like his tears across the surface. He clasped his hands together, his voice breaking beneath the burden of despair as he uttered words that shattered the stillness. "Please, I'm your father." Standing above him, looming with icy contempt, was a young woman adorned in refinement, his son's fiancée, radiating arrogance and malice. Her gaze sharpened with annoyance rather than compassion, her mouth twisted into a scornful smile as though his suffering provided amusement. If you hold faith in compassion, in redemption, and in a world where love should prevail over brutality, then please pause now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Untold Stories 0.4. Each act of support enables us to continue delivering stories that resonate, stories capable of transforming how we perceive one another. The elderly man was Alfred Rowan, once robust, once dignified, once filled with joy. Fortune had shown him little mercy in his twilight years. He had buried his wife to disease, surrendered his career to time's passage, and forfeited his dwelling to accumulating debt. All that remained was his sole child, Victor, who had evolved into a gifted entrepreneur, a millionaire now residing in the very estate where Alfred knelt. Yet somewhere during his ascent to prosperity, Victor had severed ties with the origins that had once sustained his aspirations, leaving Alfred beyond the entrance, invisible and unacknowledged. That specific morning, Alfred had arrived with a spirit brimming with optimism. He yearned for reconciliation, for the comfort of his son's arms, for an opportunity to remind Victor that beneath the riches and influence, family remained the genuine treasure. However, as he entered, pulling his exhausted limbs across the marble flooring, he encountered Cassandra, Victor's betrothed. She possessed the same luminance as the residents, perfect cosmetics, costly silk attire, gems that glittered. Yet her attractiveness was honed by mercilessness. To her, Alfred was not the father of the man she intended to wed. He represented a blemish on their flawless reputation, an obstacle to be dismissed. Alfred had faltered while attempting to assist with cleaning the floor after inadvertently overturning a water bucket. His joints failed him and he collapsed, his elderly bones throbbing as he clutched the mop for stability. Moisture gathered in his eyes, not merely from physical discomfort, but from shame. It was then that the entreaty erupted from his mouth, exposed and vulnerable. "Please, I'm your father." Yet Cassandra merely sneered. Her tone was harsh and piercing, reverberating through the magnificent corridor like fragments of crystal. She ridiculed him for his threadbare clothing, for his quaking hands, for presuming to identify himself as father to a man of Victor's prominence. Each heartless utterance was a blade. Alfred's spirit fractured increasingly with every affront. He recalled the occasions he had hoisted Victor onto his shoulders through the playground, the evenings he had remained wakeful to mend Victor's damaged school garments because they lacked funds for replacements, the dinners he had foregone so his child could consume. All those offerings, all that devotion now appeared invisible beneath Cassandra's scorn. The tension in the atmosphere intensified when the sound of a key rotating in the front entrance lock resonated throughout the mansion. Cassandra stiffened momentarily, her taunting expression wavering as Victor Rowan entered. Towering, precise, assured in his custom suit, Victor embodied every aspect of the powerful figure the world respected. He held a briefcase in one hand, his mobile device in the other. However, when his gaze lifted and settled upon the scene before him, his father crumpled on the ground, soap bubbles spreading around him like tears, the confident facade fractured. The moment appeared frozen. Victor's complexion paled as he released his phone, the crash resounding across the hall. His pulse pounded because in that single instant he perceived not a feeble elderly man, but the father who had once been his universe. He remembered the calloused hands that had raised him when he stumbled, the gentle voice that had lullabied him to rest, the power that had protected him from tempests. Now that same father was kneeling, pleading, degraded in his own residence. Victor's attention turned to Cassandra. Her mouth opened as she fumbled for justification, but the frigid rage in his stare rendered her speechless. He advanced with deliberate steps, each one weighted with understanding, and knelt alongside Alfred. His hands, groomed and powerful, reached for his father's trembling ones. "Dad!" His voice fractured, heavy with feeling, and in that solitary word, the years of separation dissolved. Alfred wept freely, his tears saturating Victor's jacket as his son held him. For the first time in ages, he felt acknowledged, felt cherished. Victor murmured apologies, genuine and unrefined, for every instance he had failed to be the son Alfred merited. The mansion that had once seemed like a bastion of hollow prosperity now throbbed with a warmth born of reunion. Cassandra remained motionless, her pride disintegrating under the force of Victor's fury. He stood upright, his arms sheltering his father, and in a voice that trembled with justified indignation, he declared that cruelty held no position in his existence, his future, his dwelling. With that pronouncement, the engagement that had glittered in social columns crumbled like cinders because Victor understood no fortune, no beauty, no authority was worth more than the man who had sacrificed everything for him. The subsequent days overflowed with restoration. Victor organized for his father to reside with him, not as an encumbrance, but as his family. He ensured Alfred's every requirement was fulfilled, but more significantly, he offered him his time, his affection, and his appreciation. The mansion was no longer merely an exhibition of wealth. It transformed into a home resonating with laughter, communal meals, and the quiet strength of a connection reborn. Alfred, though aged and delicate, moved with a more buoyant stride, his heart relieved of solitude. Viewers, if this narrative moved your soul, please take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Untold Stories 0.4. These are not merely stories. They serve as reminders that love, forgiveness, and kindness can convert even the most frigid moments into miracles. Before we conclude, I have a special appeal. Share with us in the comments. What does family signify to you, and who is that one person you could never abandon? Because ultimately, Alfred's journey is not his alone. It reflects what we all pursue, to be loved, to be remembered, and to be treasured by those we call our own.